Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we are taking a look at Phil Mickelson's golf swing. Now Phil's been on a pretty good run of form lately, going low at the PGA Championship. So let's dive in and we're going to take a look at his golf swing with iron, driver, wedge, and also his chipping action all in slow motion as well. So let's dive straight in and let's get started. If you are new to the channel, remember, hit that like button, subscribe, and comment your thoughts down below. I'd love to know any thoughts you guys think about anything I'm saying or Phil Mickelson's swing or whatever. Comment them down below or reply to all of the comments. So first of all, let's have a look. We got Phil hitting some smooth little wedges here. Looks like he's just getting warmed up on the driving range and just going through the motions. Now let's have a look in slow motion, just play this through. There's a lot to talk about with Phil Mickelson's golf swing, and I'm also going to be actually flipping his swing and taking a look at it as a right-handed golfer so that it's a little bit easier to understand and kind of relate to for most of you guys. So let's play this wedge swing back in slow motion one more time. And his wedge swing obviously feels great with his wedges, and there's a lot of really good things about Phil's golf swing, but there's also some things that definitely could be quite easily improved. And I'm going to talk a little bit about as well what Phil and his coach, or his old coach, Butch Harmon, who coached him throughout most of his career, have actually worked on with his swing through the last few decades, really. So let's take a look now. Let's take a look at this iron swing first of all. It's a bit easier to see with the iron and the longer clubs some of the kind of best points and also worst points in Phil's swing. Obviously, incredible player. A lot of people say he is one of the most talented players ever. For example, I don't believe he actually, I've been told quite a lot that he doesn't really work that hard on his game. He doesn't really practice a lot, but he has apparently one of the best hands in the golf swing, and this is quite a handsy golf swing. So here we have Phil set up at address. Now this looks like to me it's about a 5-iron probably. Address position, really good. Obviously, he's got alignment, stick down on the ground there, everything perfectly in alignment, posture and everything nice and relaxed. Looks a pretty good setup overall. Now, let's slowly play this swing back to parallel with the ground, and if we pause it here, pretty good takeaway. One-piece takeaway, really nice and wide. He hasn't started to hinge the wrists yet. He hasn't started to fold his left arm. For a right-handed golfer, it would be our right arm, but he hasn't started to fold that left arm yet. And we can see he's turning really nicely with the hips already. So he's using his body to take the club away, which if you're familiar with most of the videos I do about tour players' golf swings, most of them take the club away this way, more with the body. So that's definitely something you guys can copy. Also, if we look at the club face, it perfectly matches his spine angle. Really nice and square club face. Now let's slowly play this to the top. So he's going to start to fold that left elbow. It gets quite deep in behind him, and then he gets very late wrist set. And if we pause it at the top, pretty good position overall. After we take a look at it left-handed, I'm going to show you it right-handed so that it's a little bit easier to see some of these things. We can see he's really nicely loaded into his left side, into his trail side. A lot of pressure and weight going through the ground. And if we have a look how much flex is in his right knee, so his front knee, that is quite a lot of flex, and he's using that to help him pivot, help him use the ground, help him load into that trail side. If we look at his left arm, his trail arm, it is quite deep and in behind him a little bit. He does have the arms quite deep, and he does have quite a lot of wrist set. With a 5-iron, this is obviously, he's got the club pretty much parallel with the ground, which for most modern players, they would never get a 5-iron close to parallel with the ground, really, for a lot of them. If we think about like John Rahm, Tony Finau, Will Zalatoris, all these sorts of guys, they would have much shorter, more compact swings, and a big reason for that is they would keep the hands and arms more connected, a bit more in front of them, and keep that trail arm, which would be their right arm or Phil's left arm, a little bit more down, a little bit more in front of their chest, to keep that club a little bit shorter, and probably with a little bit less wrist set as well. So here, as we start to slowly swing down, something to bear in mind, the shaft's going to steepen. Phil gets the shaft working quite steep on the way down, gets the face pretty open. If we pause it parallel to the ground here, we can actually see that face is relatively open. In a more old-fashioned golf swing, this is kind of the position they tried to get into, where the toe of the club was basically pointing straight up to the sky. But in a more modern golf swing, most players try and get that face a little bit squarer earlier, so it more matches the spine angle, and this is so that they can just turn through onto the ball, have better club face control. So because Phil does have that face a little bit open, we're going to have to see him work the hands and arms quite hard as he comes down into the ball and through. So if we slowly play this down into impact, we're going to see a big release with the hands. If we pause it at impact, pretty good impact position overall, but we can see how straight his right arm is, and this is because he's really, his left arm, his trail arm, we can see how straight his left arm is, and that is because of how deep the left arm gets at the top of the backswing and how steep and open the club face is, he's then having to release the hands and that left arm a lot earlier in the downswing and through to the ball than some other players would do. They might keep that trail arm more connected to the body and the face a bit squarer to turn through, use a bit more rotation. But overall, Phil gets himself into a great position. He's covering the ball nicely. He actually, despite the steepness and openness, he does get himself into a pretty good impact position. As we slowly play it through, we are going to see he has to release that face over really hard to square the club face up because of how open he's gotten it as he swings through to that classic kind of Phil Mickelson finish. Let's play this through one more time, and then let's flip it and have a look at it right-handed. So let's just play it through. We're going to see big, wide, nice takeaway, but from the top gets the club and everything a little bit deep and a little bit steep on the way down, and then he has to really work hard to square up those hands. And that's why Phil does have that kind of big miss in him, that big either right or left miss, and can be a bit wayward at times. So now let's take a look at Phil. Well, let's go for, if we have a look at Phil in right-handed with the iron, and then it's a little bit easier to see some of these things. So let's flip this and have a look right-handed and just play through it a few times slowly. So again, we can see this big wide takeaway, then that now his right arm getting too deep, steepens on the way down, and then we can see big, huge release with the hands rolling that club face over. Let's play through it one more time. I like how he pivots in the backswing. I really do like that. I like his lower body action pretty much throughout the entire swing. Loads really nicely, and then shifts his weight and pressure back onto that front foot really nicely again. So that's probably my favorite thing. Now let's have a look at Phil hitting driver, and then we're going to have a look at his chipping action. So again, Phil hitting driver, set up here. Pretty good setup position, looks really nice, really square, and yeah, great setup, very neutral. As he takes the club away, there's a few concepts here I want to talk about that Phil and Butch Harmon have worked together on. As he takes the club away, if we pause it parallel with the ground, we can see, again, beautiful wide takeaway. Now, again, pretty similar to iron takeaway, but there's a concept I want to just briefly explain to you that Butch and Phil have worked on throughout Phil's career, and that is creating more width in the swing. Now, I've done videos on a lot of other Butch Harmon players, like Adam Scott, Tiger Woods, all these sorts of guys, And Butch loves to create as much width as possible in the golf swing. And we can see in the takeaway and the backswing that Phil does have that width. He has really nice wide takeaway, really nice late wrist set. But he's going to lose that from the top of the backswing and into the downswing. So let's slowly play this swing to the top. We can see lower body working nicely, wrists hinging, and that left arm, getting really deep as we get to the top. And look how long that top of the backswing position is. That club is way past parallel. That left arm is so deep and in behind him. And he even has some cup and a huge amount of hinge in that his right wrist. And also, if we look at the lower body, huge hip turn, probably almost a bit excessive amount of hip turn, really. Most players would keep more stable to the ground. It looks like we can kind of see Phil's right heel has come off the ground a little bit, and that right knee is kind of moved inwards and very, very flexed. So from this position, Phil has lost the width he created in the backswing. And by that I mean, so Butch talks a lot about a concept of at the top of the swing trying to keep your hands as far away from, for a right-handed golfer, as far away from your right ear as possible. For Phil it would be as far away from his left ear as possible. And he's lost that width at the top here by getting the club too deep. The hands have now moved closer to that ear and they are going to come down much more narrow on the way down. Now Butch says that when he's working with Phil, he has videos of Phil working in his studio in Las Vegas where Phil is perfectly parallel at the top and creating such a good swing, such a nice wide consistent swing, hitting the ball beautifully. But when it comes to getting back onto the golf course, Phil just can't play like that. He wants to try and hit the ball as far as possible. Even if hitting the ball a little bit less far, having a more controlled, better golf swing means playing better golf, lower scoring. Apparently Phil just can't do that. He likes to hit those high, straight, nasty bombs out there. And as we slowly play this swing down, we can see it looks almost like a long driver's golf swing in terms of how deep the arm gets, the wrist set, the cup in the left wrist, and just huge, huge excessive turn. And then as he starts to swing down, that shaft almost looks like it's touching his back. Huge amount of lag. We can see how narrow those hands are really coming down and how much late kind of wrist set he has and how open that club face is. If we pause it parallel to the ground, that face is very open. That's more open than the iron swing we just took a look at. And he's really having to work hard with the arms to get that club back out in front of him because of how deep that left arm got at the top. And huge, if we play this slowly through to impact, huge release of the hands and arms. And if we pause it at impact, again we can see how straight that left arm is because he's having to release everything so hard through the ball. And if we play the swing through, it is a beautiful high golf shot, but huge release of the hands and arms as he swings through. So let's just play this swing through one or two more times. So huge, huge, wide, beautiful takeaway, but from the top he's going to get much more narrow as he starts to swing down, steepening the shaft, and then huge, big release into the ball with the hands. Let's flip this around quickly and take a look at it as a right-handed golfer. Pretty interesting to have a look at Phil Mickelson, one of the most iconic left-handers of all time, as a right-hander. But let's see. So again, we have this huge wind-up, huge, big, wide takeaway. Swing gets more flat and then steepens on the way down. Huge amount of lag and release with the hands as he comes through the ball. Let's have a look one more time. So just pay attention to where the club's moving, nice high and wide, and then back on the way down, more steep and narrow as he comes down into the ball. This is why people say, I think, or other than his chipping and short game, that Phil has some of the best hands of anyone in the world of golf, because he really has to release and work those hands So hard. So now let's take a look at Phil Mickelson hitting a little kind of chip slash pitch shot. So Phil, here we've got him set up green side, and we'll have a look at this left-handed then right-handed. Now Phil talks a lot about chipping and pitching, and he's one of the best chippers and pitchers of the golf ball in the world. But you have to take some of the things Phil says with a little bit of a pinch of salt, because he says some quite unorthodox things. He says that when he's chipping and pitching, the ball is either on his back foot or on his front foot. It's never in the middle of his stance, because he says he's either always trying to hit a high shot or he's trying to hit a low shot. So it's never in the middle, which I'm not sure I 100% agree with that. I can see kind of a little bit of what he means in terms of committing to a choice of shot, but it works for Phil, obviously. So here he's hitting a lower shot. So we've got him set up, hands are quite close to the body, shaft is nice and upright. As we slowly play this back, he's going to bring the club a little bit inside and closed, because again he's hitting a lower type shot. If we pause it there, we can actually see how close that shaft is to his legs, how close the hands are to his body. And as he starts to swing down, he's going to drop that club back down onto the ball, pop it up in the air, and it looks like it's coming out nice bit of release on it. So let's just have a look again, because bear in mind, when you're chipping and pitching, you don't really want to have too square or too closed the club face. You actually want the club face to be a bit more open to expose the bounce of the club. Typically because you're going to chunk it and really take huge divots if you keep that face more square and more closed. But here's how Phil gets away with this, because he's obviously not taking divot with this swing. So as he takes the club back, he's keeping that club face square. Then as he drops it down, look at his right shoulder. His right shoulder is going to move up and out the way, which shallows the face really nicely. Let's have a look at that again. So he's going to move that right shoulder as he swings down up and out the way, shallowing the club, and he never lets the club pass the hands, because again he's hitting a lower shot. So let's just have a look one more time. Never lets the club pass the hands, sets the wrist, moves the right shoulder up and out of the way to help that club work down into the ball, but then straight back up. So let's now take a look at this as a right-hander. It's a bit easier to see. He's going to work back, keep the club face square, hold that wrist angle from the top, then move his left shoulder now up and out the way, and never let the club pass the hands. Let's have one more look. I actually love watching this, because he comes down nice and steep onto the ball, but then he's not taking a divot. That club works nicely in a V, working down onto the ball, then back up away from the ground. So he gets a really nice clean strike and isn't digging into the ground. And the ball actually pops up fairly high, but looks like it's definitely going to have a little bit of release on it. So guys, that is Phil Mickelson's golf swing. Let me know what you guys think of that. What do you make of that? A few things I would recommend if you kind of are thinking about copying that swing. I love the body action. I love the takeaway. Really beautiful pivots, turns, uses his body well, then shifts his weight onto his trail side, then back onto the ball and onto his front foot. Really nicely. I absolutely love that. A few things I wouldn't recommend: how deep the trail arm gets, so his left arm gets at the top of the swing. Then because of that, the club gets very long and has a lot of wrist set, and then because of all those things, he steepens the shaft on the way down, has a very open club face, and then has to have a huge release with the hands and arms on the way down and through into impact and after impact. Now, if you guys saw my video I did about Viktor Hovland's golf swing a few weeks ago, that's a good one to take a look at. Similarly, did another video also about Sam Burns' golf swing. Both of those golf swings are much more modern swings than Phil Mickelson's. Phil Mickelson's is definitely a slightly more old-fashioned golf swing, relying a bit more on timing with the hands and arms and release through the ball. If you look at the videos of Sam Burns and Victor Hovland, they definitely have less release through the ball, get the club face much squarer earlier, get the hands and arms more in front of them, and then they're able to turn through and use a huge amount of rotation and power onto the ball and through the ball. So very, very interesting. Absolutely love watching Phil Mickelson. I think we can all agree he's one of the most exciting players to watch in golf. And I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. Remember to give it a like, subscribe to the channel, comment your thoughts down below. And I'll see you guys very soon. As always, guys, grip it and rip it.